Hello and welcome to today's Celebrity News. I'm your host, Jay So Extra. Today I am coming to you live from the federal courthouse building located in downtown St. Louis. As you can see right behind me is the Thomas F. Eagleton building, This is the new federal courthouse where Tim Norman's murder for hire case is being heard. Today is Monday, September 12th. Today is day 5 of the trial. I'm here to give you just a quick recap of the first 4 days of the trial. As you all know, Labor Day was last Monday, so the trial began last Tuesday with day 1, ending on Friday with day 4. There have been a multitude of witnesses, a multitude of testimonies, a slew of evidence, and thousands of pages of discovery for the defense and the prosecution. So in light of all that, I just want to give you a day-by-day detailing of what witnesses, their positions, and how they pertain to the case. Starting with day 1, we actually began the day with opening arguments from the prosecution and also Tim's defense team. As I mentioned before in previous videos, the government is being represented by U.S. Attorney Gwen Carroll and U.S. Assistant Attorney Miss Angie Dennis, Tim is being represented by Leonard Trial Lawyers, Mr. John Leonard and a Miss Gloria Rodriguez. Please forgive me if those names are wrong, but I believe they are correct. After the opening arguments were heard, the judge called for the government's first witness, which was Michelle Griggs, Andre's mother. Andre's mother gave testimony to how Andre came into guardianship under Miss Robbie Montgomery, who is his paternal grandmother, how he came to live in St. Louis after living in Texas, how he moved back to Texas after he graduated high school and then moved back to St. Louis, and then how Tim contacted Michelle Griggs asking for Andre's social security number, date of birth, things like that. After Miss Griggs testified, we then went on to hear from FBI agent, Special Agent Faber, and he testified to the text messages between Tim Norman and Wael Yagnam, who we know to be the life insurance agent for Tim, who allegedly aided in facilitating life insurance policies for Andre Montgomery that were owned by Tim Norman. It also showed text messages between Andre Montgomery and his grandmother Robbie Montgomery, text messages between Terica Ellis and Andre Montgomery, so on and so forth. The day 1 ended with Special Agent Faber on the stand, and day 2 began with him on the stand as well. Day 2, starting with Special Agent Faber, continuing his testimony, reflecting those text messages between all of the parties. After he left the stand, day 2 proceeded with interviews and witness testimony from 4 different representatives of 4 different life insurance companies. They were all chief underwriting managers or underwriting managers for multiple insurance companies, for instance, Mutual of Omaha, America Life, and they all testified that they received a life insurance application to cover Andre Montgomery, and the death benefit being upwards in the hundreds of $1,000s. Each one of those thousands of dollars, each one of those applications listed Tim Norman as the beneficiary and having him receiving 100% of the death benefit. Each one of those applications had a rider, which is an addendum or an additional payout if something were to happen or if something changed in the life of the person who was being covered. 4 of those applications were denied from those companies. Day 2 ended with one of the representatives from the life insurance company giving testimony as to why the application was denied. Day 3 started with a representative from Forrester's Life Insurance, and Forrester's Life Insurance was actually the life insurance company who actually issued a life insurance policy on Andre Montgomery, listing Tim Norman as the beneficiary and his percentage being 100% of the death benefit. As I mentioned in previous videos, the initial coverage for Andre's life insurance policy was $200,000, and a rider was taken out for an additional $200,000 if Andre death was due to an accident or was deemed accidental, and then a second rider if Andre died within 10 years of that life insurance policy being established, which totals a $450,000 death benefit for Andre's death being ruled accidental, and also Andre's death taking place within 10 years of the establishment of that life insurance policy. Afterwards, we did hear from Travell Hill, who clarified that his name is actually pronounced Trivell. Trivell testified that his involvement in the case, text messages he received and sent at the behest of Tim Norman, allegedly. He did testify that he never spoke to Tim. There was no phone call. He also testified that he didn't shoot anybody, but that was later rebutted because there is evidence showing that Trivell did admit to that on tape. We also heard from Terica Ellis, who testified that she did have an intimate relationship and a personal relationship with Tim Norman, that she indeed met with Tim Norman in March of 2016, that she did in fact receive $10,000 from Tim, that she did in fact go to the Galleria and purchase some clothes for Andre Montgomery. She did in fact meet Andre Montgomery at the location on Natural Bridge the day of his death, and that she did in fact leave the St. Louis area immediately after Andre was shot. In addition, we heard from, this is day 3, we heard from Daryl Howard, also known as DJ Beats. DJ Beats testified to knowing Tim Norman, exchanging text messages with him, being instructed to go to the Chase Park Plaza to pick up an envelope, that envelope having $5,000. DJ testified that he took said money, took a picture of it, how it was wrapped in specific colored rubber bands, how he then took that money to Trivell's girlfriend in the Peabody Projects, requested that they take a picture of the money as well to show receipt, and that those text messages, those pictures were sent to Tim Norman allegedly. But that was DJ's testimony. Afterwards, we did hear from a special agent. Excuse me, I'm just checking my notes really quickly. Special Agent Boots, who is a digital evidence specialist. So that agent testified to the validity of the text messages, how they were obtained, the process of obtaining a warrant, searching through the phones, how the text messages were documented and sent to the government. And day 3 ended with testimony from a Mr. Applebaum, who would testify to more questions regarding the life insurance policies. On day 4, we began with Special Agent Sebastian Freund. He is a part of the Cellular Analysis Survey Team, also known as CAST. He's also a member of the Violent Task Force in St. Louis, Missouri. As I mentioned in the previous video, St. Louis developed their own task force to deal with the uptick in violent crimes in the city. Special Agent Freund would testify to cell phone tower records, pinging Tim's 2 personal phones and also a burner phone throughout the city in the 2 days of Andre's death and the day after Andre's death. He was also able to demonstrate the location of Terica's phone through that same 24-hour period. He was also able to demonstrate the location of DJ's phone via his Google account and his iCloud account throughout that time, and also the location of Trivell Hill's phone during that time as well. Special Agent Freund had a detailed map of pinpointing every phone at multiple times a day, and was able to corroborate that with the text messages that were presented by Special Agent Faber at the very beginning of the trial. So every time a text message was sent and there was a timestamp, Special Agent Freund was able to show the location of that phone in question, the 2 phones that were having the text message correspondence. He was able to show on a map where those 2 phones were located at that specific time of day. Excuse me, I'm just going through my notes. We also heard from Special Agent Wood, who was able to testify to travel records of Tim Norman and also of Andre Montgomery. He was able to demonstrate how Tim purchased a ticket and when he left Los Angeles via LAX, Los Angeles International Airport, how he purchased a hotel room at the Chase Park Plaza via his Priceline account when Tim landed in St. Louis, Missouri, and then when he left St. Louis, Missouri, and when he landed back in Los Angeles, California. The records were also able to show when Andre left Texas, he flew out via Dallas and landed in St. Louis on March 4th. It may be March 6th. Please forgive me if I got those dates wrong. But Special Agent Wood was also able to demonstrate or show when that travel activity took place. I forgot to mention earlier that we did hear from a crime scene tech who was able to testify to the state of the location where Andre was murdered, how many people were in the home, that there were shell casings found outside the home where near Andre's body, who was found outside the home. She was able to show pictures of the casings and the markers that were photographed by not only the detectives but also the crime scene techs, and she was able to testify as to that location being the main area of activity of that night. Also, we heard from another special agent, her name escapes me at this time, please forgive me. She was able to testify to the type of weapon that was used to kill Andre Montgomery. She was also able to rule out the guns that were found in the home. There was a .357 Glock SIG found in the home. There was an AK, please forgive me, I forget the caliber. I was either an AR-15 or an AK caliber weapon, semi-automatic or automatic weapon found in the home. There was also a .22 found in the home, but the caliber of weapon that killed Andre Montgomery was a .380. So this detective, or this special agent, excuse me, was able to rule out that any of those guns that were found in the home were not the gun that fired the fatal shot to Andre Montgomery. That brings us to today, day 5. We began today with a testimony from Chris Carroll. Chris Carroll took the stand. As you remember from previous videos, Chris Carroll was also known as White Boy Chris. His involvement in the case was he was the one allegedly who introduced Tim Norman to Trivell Hill. When Chris Carroll took the stand, he pled the fifth to all questions that were asked by Tim's defense attorney. The government had no cross-examination for that witness. That witness was excused. We then followed up with a private investigator. His name was Joe S. Adams Jr. He testified that Miss Robbie hired him to find whoever robbed her house or whoever burglarized her house, excuse me. He also testified that it was mentioned to him that over $1 million worth of cash and precious items were taken from Miss Robbie's home. He testified that he speculated that Andre was involved in the burglary and that he and his team made efforts to track Andre down and to learn his location. After that, he was dismissed from the stand. Following his testimony, defense called a gentleman by the name of Caven, who owns Caven Performance. It's a modification company here in St. Louis that tricks out vehicles and modifies them and adjusts them. And he was asked to testify to the relationship or how he knew Tim Norman. After a few questions, he was dismissed from the stand. In addition to that, a Calvin Payne, who previously worked at Sweetie Pie's restaurants, was called to testify as to his relationship with Tim Norman and if he knew Tim Norman to be a trustworthy and truthful person. He was also dismissed from the stand. And another gentleman who worked at the Sweetie Pie's restaurant, a Mr. Bruce George, was called to testify on Tim's behalf to testify to Tim's nature or proclivity for truthfulness and peacefulness. I also forgot to mention that the prosecution called Big Eddie Chandler to testify in regards to security tapes and photographs that he took of Andre when he was in a Sweetie Pie's location. They asked why he took those pictures of Andre and why he sent those to Miss Robbie and Tim, and Eddie Chandler was able to testify to that. For today, after those witnesses that I previously mentioned were called, we actually adjourned for the day because the defense had no other witnesses to call. Their next witness will testify tomorrow morning, and that would be the last witness for Tim's defense team. So we are looking to hear from the final witness of Tim's defense tomorrow, Tuesday, and then after that there will be the defense will rest, and then we will possibly hear closing statements from both the prosecution and Tim's defense team. That is all I have today. Make sure that you guys follow me on TikTok and Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram at Today's Celebrity News. You can follow me on TikTok and Twitter at TC News TV. Make sure that you like this video, subscribe to my channel. As always, I've been J So Extra. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and until next time, be safe.